So several years ago when I started hand lettering, I wanted to try dip pen calligraphy, and I went to the store and just bought a really inexpensive dip pen calligraphy kit. It came with this really weird nib that I wasn't really sure how to use. I kept pushing really hard to try to get it to open up, and no matter what, it just kept giving me the same size line. In hindsight, that was a monoline pen nib. I had no idea that was a thing, and I probably damaged the nib trying. But all these years later, I still haven't forgotten about it, and so I wanted to try one again. But the problem is I couldn't remember what it was. So I ordered this 10-pack of nibs from Speedball, and I want to try them out with you today. I thought it would be fun to show you some different nibs that are maybe a little bit different than the ones you've been trying to use, and hopefully I will find that nib that I'm looking for. So for starters, this is the nib pack that came from Amazon. I won't lie, I was not expecting this tiny little box, but I did open it and they are here. So this is what we have on the back. They are listed, and I will give you an example of what each of these write like. I have my dip pen calligraphy ink, and then I'm also going to wipe these down before I start. I know that there are several ways to clean nibs, and one of them is like sticking them into a potato, but you'll see when I open this that some of these are a little bit different shaped, so I'm just gonna wipe them down. I have a little bit of rubbing alcohol, it's not full strength. I'm just gonna give them a quick wipe down. If that's not your favorite way to clean a nib, I'm so sorry, but you will see with the shape of these that I am a little bit limited here. So I'm just gonna put this in here so that it's easier to dip, and let's test these out. All right, so I have them in order according to the package, so I'm just gonna leave them, and I'm gonna start with the left one, and we will go all the way across, and hopefully we will find that beautiful monoline hand lettering nib. It's always risky business when I have a big open bottle of ink on my desk. Fun fact, this is not my desk, it is a big piece of paper. I would never be able to keep my desk this clean. If you ever wonder why you see ink spills in one video and they are gone in the next, that is why. So I have several beautiful nib holders that I have spent a decent amount of money on. This is not one of them, but that's okay. It's gonna get the job done, and hopefully this lettering will look beautiful. Okay, I'm a tiny bit surprised by this one. I actually was not thinking this was going to be monoline. It's quite pointy, so I was expecting it to have a little bit of give and take, but I think I am wrong, because while this is not the one that I remember using, I do think that this is a monoline nib. So let me do some more lettering and see. All right, well, I stand corrected. I think that this is also a monoline nib. As somebody who is used to pressing harder with my downstrokes, it is going to take me a little bit of time to get used to these pens so that I do not immediately destroy them. But let's try the other ones out. And we have gone from that super tiny one to this one. So I'm not really sure how this is gonna work, but let's see. I'm trying not to dip it too far, but also still dip it far enough that it works. Oh my. Well, I'm definitely not going to be able to write hand lettering across here, but how about hello? This is going to take some getting used to. Tell me if you have used this one. What is the type of lettering that you would use with this? Because I'm sure there's a purpose, but I don't think my lettering is probably the right style for this pen, but I'm sure it's perfect for something. If I do not have ink all over my hands by the end of this video, I will be surprised. Guys, I'm not sure, but we might have a winner. This one is so good. I'm not positive if it's identical to the one before. It might be a little bit bigger, but I'm keeping this one set aside so that I can try it with maybe some watercolor, because this is pretty dark, and I remember it maybe being a colorful ink that I was using, maybe even liquid watercolor. So I'm gonna try out the other ones, but this is a good contender. Oh, I think I have them out of order. This is not B5. B3. We'll just pretend that did not happen. And I don't know if you can see this, but some of them are like pushed off to one side. I don't think that's probably how it's supposed to be, so I'm just gonna adjust this gold piece so that it's centered right here in the middle. So again, that's another reason why I could not push this nib into a potato. It's starting. Okay, this is another great contender. However, I think this one might have been slightly too small. So I did B3, which seemed maybe slightly too large, and now B5 feels a little bit too small. So I have high hopes for B4, which is what I'm gonna try next. Ooh. I believe I just stuck my nib in the middle of the pen instead of around the side where it's actually supposed to go. And the ink spilling situation is just really going downhill. All right, I won't lie, I don't see a huge difference between B3 and B4, but I can see that it might be just slightly more narrow. And if I'm choosing favorites, I think I have to go with B4 so far. I think it might just make it a little bit easier to do some hand lettering without running out of space. All right, I have 5 left to test. I'm a little nervous about B0 and C1, but I'm gonna follow through and finish and then test some of these out with some liquid watercolors. So here goes B1, which looks to be really similar, just larger. But here we go with B0. With this one, I feel like it put down so much ink. I would not be surprised if that takes quite a while to dry. My paper is holding it pretty well. I'm actually just using HP Premium 32, which is not a calligraphy paper, but I like it enough for using a dip pen. And I thought especially one that's not pointy, because it's probably not going to catch as much as maybe a really pointy dip pen. So let's try C5, and these are shaped a little bit differently. So I'm curious to see what we're going to get with C5. I didn't even attempt hand lettering with that, but I think we all know how that would have gone. All right, I may have spoken too soon with the pointy pen. This one's, instead of a circle, it's kind of flat and feels a little bit scratchy. It's not the same type of a nib where you're getting those like thick downstrokes and thin upstrokes, but it's also not as smooth feeling as those like circular monoline nibs that I was just using. So not my favorite. We only have 2 left, so I cannot leave you hanging. Let's go ahead and see what C3 and C4 look like. Okay, correction, this is C1 and not C4. All right, so these last ones that start with a C, I could see where you'd use them and what style of lettering you would use them in. It's just not my personal style, so you can kind of see they don't look amazing because I just tend to not use those flat etched pens or markers or anything like that. So my favorites still definitely up here, somewhere in between B3 and B4. I think I would choose B4, but I'm not picky. They're both great. So let's go ahead and see what they look like with some liquid watercolor. All right, so I did go ahead and swish this in just a little bit of water. I am going to dip it in this Ecoline liquid watercolor. It is the number 718. So I think I might have found it. I really love this nib. I love using a dip pen, but I just really love monoline hand lettering. And the thing is about this nib is that it feels so nice gliding across your paper. I'm using a really smooth paper. It's HP Premium 32. It does not have a lot of tooth to it. So if you're using a rougher textured paper, it might not feel as smooth as I'm describing, and that might be why. But if you are using a smooth paper, it just feels like it kind of glides right off of your dip pen. And I just really enjoy not only the feel of how it feels to use it, but also the outcome. And that is really important to me as well. I like to combine both of those things. I like to feel like I'm really enjoying my art, but I also find a lot of joy in using my creativity to make something that I love the outcome of. And so this does that for me. So even though my hands did not make it out without some stains, I am really excited that I found the nib that I almost ruined years ago. Let me know below if you have tried this one or what your favorite tool for hand lettering is. I have a whole channel full of hand lettering videos, so I will link a playlist here that I think you may enjoy. I will see you over in the next video.